even though it's breaking wind. There are clouds in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you'll see the sun come shining through for you. Light up your face with gladness, hide every trace of sadness, although a tear may be ever so near. That's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile.
Hi guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, Christopher is going to be teaching you one of my favorite tunes, which is called Smile. So fun fact, the music for this song was actually composed by none other than Charlie Chaplin. So with this arrangement, we had a little bit of fun. So as you guys heard in the performance, the first half is a vocal accompaniment, while the second half is a solo chord melody. So there should be something for everyone with this arrangement. Now, there's a couple elements that make it a little bit tricky to play, so let's touch on those really quick. The first one is that there are a few jazzy chords thrown in there. So jazzy chords meaning there's a few bar chords and there's a few chords that require 4 fingers to fret. Now in regards to bar chords, the biggest key in having success with playing bar chords is having proper left-hand form. And proper left-hand form doesn't mean what's happening just in front of the neck, but also what's happening behind the neck. So if you need a recap on proper left-hand form, be sure to check out this lesson. I'll put a link in the description box below as well. Now, in regards to 4-finger chords, the cool thing about this lesson is Christopher's going to give you a couple options for fingering some of the trickier chords. So be sure to try out each option that he gives you and pick the one that feels the most comfortable or fits your playing style best. So the second element that I wanted to talk about that makes this arrangement just a little bit more challenging to play occurs in the second half of the tune, so over the chord melody part. And that's the fact that Christopher uses a couple strumming techniques that are a little bit more advanced to play. So the first one is the triplet strum, and the second is a strumming technique called the split stroke. And it's a really cool technique that makes melody notes pop out of chords. So if either of those techniques are new to you, or you're wondering what they are, then definitely check out our strumming course, because Christopher's going to break them down and he's going to teach you the rhythm behind it. And there's actually 2 other strumming techniques in that course. So it's a really great course for those of you who kind of want to move beyond just the basic down and up strumming. You want to learn how to jazz up your right hand rhythm playing. Now let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this lesson. So in this video, this is the part 1 lesson. You're going to learn the first half of the tune, so the vocal accompaniment part. If you want to learn the chord melody part, that's going to be taught in the Part 2 lesson, so you can click that link right there, or you can go to the site, rockclass101.com, and do a search for Smile. Now, also on that page will be the tabs that you can print off and keep as a PDF format, as well as access the on-screen tab viewer. So this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a really great asset for learning this song that much easier. Alright guys, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Christopher to teach you how to play this, and then I'll see you at the end of the video.
Hey friends, this is Christopher Davis-Shannon with Rock Class 101, and this month I have arranged the 1936 Charlie Chaplin tune Smile for you all. Now this tune is attributed to Chaplin as writing it, but with most of the pieces that he wrote, really what he did was more or less hum the melody to a composer. So we can probably attribute the melody to him, but the harmony likely comes from elsewhere. Now this arrangement also has the lyrical version in it, which actually did not come about until 1954. When lyrics were written to go over this melody, and Nat King Cole had a huge hit with it, and then this song just continued on. Even Michael Jackson had a huge affinity for this song and recorded it in the mid-80s or so. So let's start off this arrangement. The first little section will be an accompaniment section to sing over, and then after that we'll talk about a solo uke arrangement of this to challenge you just a little bit more. So as we look at the beginning of this tune, we have a little 4-bar intro getting us into the tune just to set up the melody so that we don't need to start singing right at the top. What we'll be doing is actually using the last 4 bars of the form as our little intro section. So we're starting on a C major chord, but this is going to be a little bit different than the one you are used to. It will be open, 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 but we're going to play the E on the 7th fret, our 3rd of the chord, on our A string, and that's going to give us our melody note. Now you can play this with either your ring finger or your pinky, because as we look ahead we're going to need to go to the 8th fret directly after this. So what we'll be doing is 2 half-note strums are held for 2 beats a piece on this C major chord. And then we're going to go up to an A minor voicing. We're going to leave the G and C strings open as they are. We're going to play an A on the 5th fret of our E string. And then we're going to play our pinky on the 8th fret, which is actually an F, not in our chord, but this is our melody note, and then we're going to walk down from there. So we'll strum this whole chord, and then we're going to walk down on our A string, 7, 5, and then 8 with the pinky on, for the C on our E string, and that's going to give us our melody. So here's bar 2 of the intro. And after we do this, we're going to go to our D minor 7th chord, and we're actually going to omit the 7th in this case. What we're going to do is a partial bar. So we're going to leave the G string open and not play it in the beginning, and bar the rest of our strings across the 5th fret. This is going to give us our D melody note. And the reason we're leaving this G open is if we look at beat 3, we're going to use that as our melody note. So bar 3 will sound like this. And then we have the G on beat 3, and we let that ring out. And then finally, we're going to let that G ring out through the next measure, and we're going to voice a G13 chord, which is really just a G7th chord with an added E to it, as that again is our melody note. So our voicing will be open, and you can bar across the 5th fret, much as we did before, and then a double bar across the 7th fret on your E and A strings. So chord will sound like this, and we don't even need to include the G string when we play this. You're welcome to also voice this with 3 individual fingers, open, 5, 7, 7. Really, whatever way to finger this is more convenient for you. There's not one correct way necessarily to do this. So let me play just these first 4 bars, the intro of the tune, and then we'll try it all together. It'll sound a little bit something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So one thing that I want you to keep note of in here is that all of the positions we're using are right here. Really, if you're barred across the 5th fret after we get past the C chord, you can leave that down for almost the rest of the 4-bar section here. Everything should really be based around this 5th fret voicing. So let's try that little intro section together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, as we get into the meat and potatoes of the accompaniment of this song, you'll see that really our first 6 bars are all variations on a C major chord. We just have movement within the chords. But before we talk about the harmony of this song, I want to talk about how I would strum this. Now, this is not necessarily how you need to strum it, but just a suggestion to take in mind. For a nice ballad like this, or a slower, softer song, it can be very nice to just use our thumb for all of this. You'll see that I've notated half notes, or 2 beats per chord, so 2 strums per bar for the vast majority of this section. And that allows the vocal melody to really flow over top, as opposed to sometimes getting obscured by too many chord voicings, or maybe if we use our first finger, the nail can just be a little brash for such a soft, sensitive song. So I like to just use my thumb as I do these ballads. Now we're starting off on just our regular old C major chord, open, 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 3. We're gonna strum that twice, so it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're going to add in bar 6 a little bit of bass movement to this. We'll take our middle finger and add the D on the 2nd fret of our C string, giving us a C major over D. Whenever we see these slash chords in music, that is denoting what the lowest note in the chord is. So in this case, we'll take what was the first an open C and move it on up to a D. And then on beat 3 of bar 6, we're going to move on down our ring finger that's playing the C here to the 2nd fret. Now you're probably familiar with this little voicing, and it's either, depending how you look at it, you'd see it as an E minor 7th or a G 6th. But in this context, it's still really a C chord. We just have it now over top of a D, and we're playing the major 7th, the B, which is giving us an anticipatory tone to get to our next chord, which is that C major 7th. Let me play these first 2 bars of the B section, just getting to that C major 7th chord so you can hear the harmonic movement that goes through this. And as we get to beat 1 of bar 7, we're just going to play a regular old C major 7th chord, which means since we're already in this open 2 position, all we need to do, lift up that D, and we have our C major 7th, just a C major chord with a B in it. And we'll strum this twice now. And then we're going to do exactly the same thing as we're now going to a C 6th chord. We're going to take our C major 7th, add that D again on beat 1 of bar 8, making that G 6th looking chord, but really it's still that C major 7th over D. And then on beat 3, we'll leave the D down, but open up our ring finger to make this now a C 6th over D. We know that our C 6th is everything open, so we're just putting a D in the bass here. Let me play these first 4 bars of the B section for you, and then we'll give it a shot together. Sound a little bit something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good, now let's give that a shot together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now bar 9, we resolve that C 6th over D to a regular old C 6th chord, everyone's favorite chord in the world. We'll strum that once as a half note, let it ring out for 2 beats, and then we will add that D again, just to give us another leading tone as we're walking up now to a C diminished 7th chord. Now, if you're familiar with diminished 7th chords, you know that they repeat up and down the neck. So if we know one of these diminished 7th chord shapes, we're actually going to use it by different names throughout the entire piece, but it's really the same shape to get us all of these chords that we could need. So as we get to bar 10, we walk on up to a C diminished 7th chord, which is going to be 2, 3, 2, 3, or E flat, G flat, B double flat, and then C. Sound like this, and we will strum it twice. So here's bars 9 and 10 for you from the C 6th chord. Good, and now this C diminished 7th chord is going to bring us to a D minor 7th, 2, 2, 1, 3. We'll strum that twice. And you'll see now that we have 2 more of those diminished chords in the next bar. And those diminished chords are the same voicing that we used. We're just going to use it on a different fret now. So it's still going to be a diminished 7th, but we're going to start off based around our 3rd fret now. So it'll be 3, 4, 3, 4. And we'll call this an E diminished 7th. And then we'll slide this voicing on up to our 6th fret, 6, 7, 6, 7. And that's now going to be a G diminished 7th. All right, let me play bars 9 through 12 for you so you can hear some of this movement and really how the diminished chords interplay and get us to our next more stable chords, our minor 7ths and our major chords. It'll sound a little bit something like this from the 6th chord. Good, let's try those little 4 bars together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now after this G diminished chord, we're going to resolve that down to a D minor 7th, but we're going to use a different voicing than we just did 2 bars ago. Because where our G minor 7th is up here, it's rather jarring to hop all the way back down here, so why not find a voicing that's in closer proximity to it? And when we're arranging tunes, especially to accompany ourselves, it's nice to make sure that the harmony stays close to itself on the fingerboard so that, again, we're not distracting from the melody. The harmony or our chord should always be supporting what the voice is doing, not fighting against it or creating any extra tension that we don't want to have. So our D minor 7th we're going to play is just straight across the 5th fret, 5, 5, 5, 5. There's our D minor 7th chord. You might also know this as F6th, but in this context, we'll call it a D minor 7th, and we're just going to strum this 4 times. Again, we're sticking with our half notes, 2 beats per chord. And now we're going to take this D minor 7th, and we're going to make it an F minor 6th. Now this chord is really only 1 note off of that D minor 7th that we're playing. It still contains a C, an F, and a D in there, but we're now going to play an A flat, which is on the 4th fret of our E string. So it'll be 5, 5, 4, 5. And this is our F minor 6th chord. So we play these 2 chords just back to back so you can hear just the minor variation between them, just that 1 flatted note that gives us the change. D minor 7th, F minor 6th, and you can hear that that's just screaming at us to lead back to the tonic, to the C. So let's try this little section with just the D minor 7th, F minor 6th chord. It's only 2 chords for you over 4 bars, and let's try that together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you see in bar 17 that we resolve right on back to our C major chord that we started the tune with, and as we look ahead we'll see that this little 4-bar section is in fact identical to the intro. What I did in arranging this is use these last 4 bars to foreshadow what we're going to see at the end of the first little section of the tune. So you're already familiar with this, but let me play it one more time for you before we try it together, just to piece this last little section together. So it'll sound a little something like this. Let's try that last little 4-bar section together. 1, 2, 3, 4. One of the great things about this piece is that it's an A-B form, or really only has 2 distinctive sections. And the B section is in fact almost identical to the A. If we look over the chords in letter C, which we mark in C as this, as we have A marked as the intro. In C, the chords are identical to what we just played in letter B. But the thing is, while we could just play exactly what we just played, what's the fun in that? We want to build up the momentum as we go through an arrangement. So what I've done here is create a little bit of a counter melody to the vocal line to help support and propel the arrangement along a little bit more. So we'll have a lot of the same chord voicings, but we're just going to treat it a little bit differently. You'll see at letter C, we're starting out again just on our C major chord. But as we put down our C major chord, I want you to keep the middle finger on the 2nd fret of your A string, just right behind behind that ring finger because we're going to pull off 3-2 open on beats 2 and 3. So we'll just lift up the fingers but not articulate them. And you can pull off a little bit to the side. Listen to it one more time. So those last 2 beats are going to be a little bit lighter. And then on beat 4, we're just going to play our open G string. So we're just really walking down our C major scale here. So it'll be just walking down a C major scale. Listen to that one more time. And just note that we're not articulating the second 2 notes. And then after this, we're just going to kind of walk back up our C major scale with a little broken chord pattern. So we're going to start on the open C, hammer on 2 on beat 2, that D, and then on beat 3 we'll play an E, open E string, and then our open high G. And if you happen to be playing low G, you can also just play the 3rd fret of your E string. It'll be the same exact note. So here's the second bar of letter C. And let's hear the first 2 together. They'll sound a little bit something like this. And then after that, if you recall from the initial section, we're now landing on a C major 7th chord, or open, open, 2-0. And we're going to do almost identical to what we just did. We're going to strum our C major 7th and then pull off to open G, and then we're going to pluck E on beat 4, giving us this line. And then we repeat the ascending line that we did previously, open, 2, E, G. Let me play these 4 bars, this little section of C for you, and then we'll give it a shot together, so it'll all sound like this. Let's give those 4 bars a try together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now as we get to the C6th chord, we don't really have anywhere to pull off from, so what we're going to do is a hammer on and a pull off. So we'll strum our open C6th, hammer on the 2nd fret of our A string, or just place your finger without plucking the note, and then pull right off to the open A again, and then we'll finally end on beat 4 on an open G. So here's bar 25 for you. All right, and then as we have that, we're going to our C diminished 7th chord again. And as I mentioned, these are movable up and down the neck. So we'll start on the same one we played in the initial section, 2, 3, 2, 3. But we're going to slide that up now to the 5th fret, 5, 6, 5, 6. And if you listen to this, it's the same exact grouping of notes in a different order. As we slide it up 3 frets, it's going to give us the same chord repeating, or what we call a chord inversion. So we're just going to strum once as a half note, our first C diminished chord, and then up to our 2nd C diminished chord. And you'll see if we're playing this as a bar, our next note is a D minor 7th, the one that bars straight across our 5th fret. All you have to do is lift up your fingers there and you have that D minor 7th chord. But instead of just sitting here and strumming the D minor 7th chord as we did previously, we're going to pluck through this. We'll strum it on the first beat, and then we're going to pluck down. So we'll play our chord, and then the G string, E string, C string, all just with the 5th fret bar. So here's what that bar 27, is going to sound like. All right, and then we're moving on. We could call this an A7 or an A9th chord. The 9th, which is a B, is really acting as a passing tone here, so it's not necessarily part of the chord, but it is what we're voicing, and what we start on is an A9th chord, which is open 1, open 2. And much like with the previous chords, we're just going to pull off on the A string on beat 2. Right down to our open A, and then we'll have a G and an E. So this last bar of this little 4-bar section will sound like this. All right, let me play these 4 bars for you starting at measure 25, and we'll give it all a shot together. So sound like this. Let's give that much a try together. 1, 2, 3, 4. After this, in bar 29, we're resolving down to a D minor 7th chord. This is one of the same positions we played earlier, our root position, D minor 7th, 2, 2, 1, 3. And we're just going to strum this as half notes, so 4 total strums. then we're going to an F minor sixth, but we're going to use a different voicing than we did earlier. And if you recall, the difference between a D minor seventh and an F minor sixth is only one note. We need to make the A an A flat. And in this case, the A flat is contained under the second fret of our G string. This is our A. So to make this an A flat, we bring it down to the first fret. So I like to just bar this across the first fret. And then you can leave your ring finger like this. Your middle finger's hanging out doing nothing because you can keep the pinky and the ring finger right where they are for the D minor seventh and just bar across the first fret. You're welcome to also hop over and use individual for this, but I think the bar is much easier to get to. So again, just one note difference. And we're going to strum that 4 times. So let's give those 4 bars a shot real quick together. 1, 2, 3, 4. And measure 33 brings us right on back to where we were at the beginning of this C section. We have this little pull-off pattern over a C major chord, and then the ascending line with the hammer on the D, an open E, and then a G. I'll play that for you one more time just in case you've forgotten. And then from there, we're gonna have whole notes for the next 2 bars. So we're gonna hold them each out for 4 total beats and just let it ring. And we can even act as if there's a fermata here. We can hold the note even longer for dramatic effect. So we'll play our root position D minor 7, 2, 2, 1, 3, as we played throughout this entire piece. 2, 3, 4, and then we're gonna jump up to the G13. Again, open, 5, 7, 7. And then from there, at letter D, this is a little interlude to get us into the solo portion, which is going to come out of what we call halftime, when we're strumming all of these half notes. We're only playing half of the beats in a measure. And we're going to now go into standard time, or really accentuating all 4 beats of the measure. So as we do this, when we get to this measure at letter D, we're going to play a new C major voicing. Now this is similar. We still have that E on top like we did in the beginning, but it's going to be open, 7, 8, 7. You can play this also as a bar with your first finger and second finger, or you can use your first and then your ring finger and then your middle finger to do it. It's just a G major chord slid on up the neck to the 7th fret is all. So we're gonna play that and then we're gonna rest for 1 beat. We're gonna be 1, 2, and then we're going to slide it down a half step, so now be open 6, 7, 6, which is giving us a B augmented chord. So it'll sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have another rest, and then we're going to go to the D minor 7 that's barred straight across our 5th fret, hit that, and then a rest. And then we're going to go to a G7th chord, and this is the G7th chord that most people hate. But I love this G7th chord. It's one of my absolute favorites. And it's not as hard as some people make it out to be. But I'm going to give you a couple options here as to how to play this G7 and G7 sharp 5, so you can find what's really comfortable for you. The way that I voice this, it's 4, 5, 3, 5. And I use my middle finger on the 4th fret of my G string, my ring finger on the 5th fret of my C string, my first finger on the 3rd fret, the G on my E string, and then the D up top is voiced by my pinky on the 5th fret of my A string. So it'll be 4, 5, 3, 5. And then to make that a sharp 5 on the final beat, we'll just slide the pinky up 1 fret. So we have a D sharp on the 6th fret. Now, if you don't like this chord, what you need to recognize about this is that the chord is actually an E7th chord. If you slide your hand back, this is an E7th chord. We're just sliding it on up, putting the first finger to compensate for where the open string would be. So this is a very useful voicing to have as we can bring it up and down the neck. But I know it is a tough voicing for some people. So if you don't like this, what we can do on beats 3 and 4 of this final bar of letter D is we can actually omit the G string. Just don't strum it and put your fingers so it's 5, 3, 5. And you just use your middle finger, first finger, and ring finger for that. And then you put your pinky down for the sharp 5 on beat 4. So you have that option available for you, and you can even reach around and grab it with your thumb if you like. I'm not a huge fan of voicing things on my G string with the thumb. We have 4 fingers and 4 strings, so I like to use my fingers. But if that's what's comfortable for you, that's okay. There's not always necessarily a correct way to do everything. So let's play this little intro section, this little interlude section for you, and I'm just going to slow it down so you can really hear where all these changes are. There's not much going on rhythmically, but I think it's important to see the movement. So it's going to sound like this: 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, and now let me play it up to speed for you, because really the tune would be 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so here we go for measure 33, and then we'll try that all the way to letter D so we can get this feel change in here. Good, let's try that much together now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we have the setup to get us into the standard time section of the tune, which is also the solo uke chord melody version of it, which we will be going over in the next video.
Alright guys, so this lesson has been a lot of fun. The vocal accompanying part is such an awesome way to lead us into a beautiful chord melody. And that's where we're picking up with in the part 2 lesson, is going to be all about playing the solo chord melody for Smile. So if you guys want to learn the second half of this tune, you can click this link right here, or you can go to the site rockclass101.com and do a search for Smile. Don't forget too, on that page will be the tabs that you can print off and keep for your records as a PDF format, as well as the on-screen tab viewer, so that interactive tab player can be found on that page. So you can highlight bars, loop sections, you can slow the tab down to any speed you wish. Just a really great asset for learning this song that much easier. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and we'll see you in the part 2 one. Take care.